Hello dear friends, I'm Samuel Moore and welcome to my Study with Samuel video series. Many of the most striking and memorable passages you will hear in Alegría derive from something called the Escobilla. In an ensemble context, an Escobilla is a section of the palo that acts as a showcase for the dancer's footwork. Most palos that have a dance element contain escobillas, and for each palo there are classic phrases played by the guitarist when accompanying these passages. Even if your ambition is to perform flamenco solo, knowing what these passages are is very important. And with this in mind, today we're going to look at a classic Alegría phrase and look at a few ways we can embellish it. Let's start by learning the basic idea. This. So let's take a moment to break down what's going on there before we learn it. So from the point of view of the chords, there's only really two chords you need to worry about. E, because we're going to do this in the key of E, even though you can play Alegría in a number of keys, today we're exclusively focusing on E. So E chord and the B7 chord, which is sometimes voiced with the F sharp in the bass, like so. So they're the two chords that you need to worry about. And in terms of what's happening in the compás, one Escobilla phrase lasts for 2 cycles of compás. And the reason for this is because the chords only change on beat 10. So in other words, you're starting on the E chord and you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then you change to B7 on 10, 10, 11, 12, and then you stay there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 until you resolve back here on the next 10. So in other words, the whole phrase is 2 cycles of compás long. Just to make that clear, I'm just going to strum through it with the chords. So in other words, what you're going to be doing is this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So they're the very basics of what's going on in this Escobilla phrase. Now, when you're accompanying a dancer or playing an Escobilla phrase solo, flamenco guitarists commonly use bassline melodies to bring this simple set of chords to life. So let's learn how to do that right now. There's 2 crucial technical things though you need to know before you start. For pretty much everything we do today, pretty much everything that's played with the thumb is a rest stroke, and pretty much anything that's played with the fingers is a free stroke. The second thing, and this is going to be a little bit of a workout for your left hand, I've deliberately not put the capo on today because I want you to work on stretching a little bit. You're going to have to hold each chord as you play the melody. So in other words, when you're playing the E chord, you're going to have to stretch quite a lot with the pinky and other fingers. And similarly, when you're on the B7, there's going to be a fair amount of stretching involved. So practice this without the capo on because it'll be good for you. The capo makes it easier. This means that you get a bit of a workout from a technique point of view for your left hand as well. Okay, so let's take this phrase by phrase. We're going to break each cycle of compás. So there's 2 cycles of compás, and each one we're going to break up into 3 beat chunks. So let's start with the first cycle of compás, beats 1, 2 and 3. So you're on the E chord for this, and the bass line is really simple. we're going to do it all with the thumb rest stroke. So you're going to play B, which is the note that that finger is fretting. So it's on beat 1. Then stretch the pinky over here to G sharp. And then take the finger away so you can play the B again. So in other words, it's 1, 2, 3. So that's the opening section of the first compass. Beats 4, 5 and 6, we're simply going to play the classic Alegría closing phrase. So the one where we hold the E chord and you're going to do a rest stroke with the thumb on the 6th string, free stroke with the index finger on the 1st string, then place the thumb on the 4th string and simply drag down, and then strike the last 2 strings together with the thumb combined with a golpe with this finger. So in other words, it's 4 and 5 and 6. So put that with what you've already got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then the next section, similar sort of bass line. You're going to go B, then play the G sharp again, but then bring the pinky down here so it's playing C sharp. Okay, so that's 7, 8, 9. You see what I mean? It's a bit of a workout for the left hand doing this. Then on beats 10, 11 and 12, remember we change chord on beat 10. So you're going to go to the B7 chord, but crucially I want the F sharp in the bass. So it's this voicing. And we're going to use the same hand pattern you used on beats 4, 5 and 6. So in other words, rest stroke of the thumb, free stroke of the index, then string 4 and 3 by dragging the thumb down, and then strike the last 2 strings together combined with a golpe. So in other words, it's 10, 11, 12. And collectively, this gives you the first cycle of compass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we're now into the second cycle of compass. Okay, so we're now starting on a B7 chord rather than the E. And crucially, you're going to start with the B as the bass note. So we're coming away from this shape and we're going back to this shape here. Now, the good news is that this second compass is a little bit easier than the first, because for beats 1 through to 9, it's all a big, long bass melody. So let's do it in 3 beat chunks. On beats 1, 2 and 3, you're going to go B, C sharp, and then D sharp, which is being played by this finger, which is part of the chord. So B, C sharp, and then the D sharp. That's beats 1, 2 and 3. Then 4, 5 and 6 bring this finger up to the F sharp again. And you're going to go F sharp, G sharp with the pinky, whilst holding the whole chord down, and then play the open A string. So that's 4, 5, 6. And again, crucially, you'll have to take the pinky away from the G sharp in order to let the open D sound. Finally, on beats 7, 8 and 9, you do exactly the same bass line but in reverse. So you go A, G sharp with the pinky, and then F sharp by taking the pinky away. And of course, 10, 11 and 12, it's the classic Alegría end. We come back to the E chord, because this is where we're changing chord, and then it's the same hand pattern you've used throughout. Thumb, index, then drag the thumb, and then strike down and tap. So it's 10, 11, 12. So put all that together from the second half, so the second cycle of compass, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So if you combine all of that together, that is the classic Alegría Escobilla phrase. Before we look at ways to embellish it, let's just loop around it a few times to make sure you're familiar with how it works. Right from the top, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there you have it. That's the classic Alegría Escobilla melody. Before we continue with today's lesson, I'd like to do a quick shout out to let you know about my new Patreon account. For those of you who've never come across Patreon before, Patreon is a unique crowdfunding platform that allows artists like myself to offer exclusive content in exchange for monthly pledges. Your generosity allows me to continue working as a full-time musician, and in exchange you get access to some really great material, from unseen tutorial videos similar to this one, to flamenco guitar lessons. You even get access to my weekly gathering, the Midweek Guitar Meet. This weekly study group takes place on Wednesday evenings and is a great opportunity to connect with a global community of like-minded musicians who share your passion, at the same time as getting targeted feedback from myself on a regular basis. So if all this sounds interesting to you, please click the link in the description below to access my Patreon page and select an option that works for you. I look forward to meeting you, connecting with you, and together continuing our musical journey. Now, however, let's get back to today's lesson. Having now looked at that in quite a lot of detail, let's just now talk about a few ways you can embellish it. Because when you're performing, whether it's solo or with a dancer, generally speaking, you will have to play that more than once, and therefore having a little bit of variety in your playing is quite useful. In my experience, when accompanying an escobilla or playing it solo, simple ideas are often the most effective. So let's just look at a few ways we can use this hand to bring this to life. So one of the most simple things you can do, whenever you're playing the bass melodies, for every bass note you play with the thumb, on the and, you can use an index finger free stroke on the high E string to bring it to life. So it's nothing too fancy, but basically if we play the first 3 beats of the whole phrase, instead of going 1, 2, 3, we're now going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and then the cadence is as normal. So if I roll that out across the whole phrase, it would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's very simple, but it works. Similarly, you could line these 3 fingers up on strings 3, 2 and 1. And for each bass note you could do maybe a rolled arpeggio. So in other words, each time you play a bass note, you roll by peeling away 3, 2, 1 very fast. So in other words, beats 1, 2 and 3 would sound like this. And then the resolution is normal. If you roll that out across the whole thing, it would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Again, really simple but really effective. You could equally do a similar sort of arpeggio that's a bit more straight. So instead of lining up on 3, 2, 1 and peeling away 3, 2, 1, you could line up in the same way, but come away 1, 2, 3. Okay, so for every bass note you're just going a very straight arpeggio. So in other words, beats 1, 2 and 3 would sound like this. 1, 2, 3. And then the arpeggio finishes there and you close as normal. So if you roll that out across the whole thing, it would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Again, really simple but really effective. It's also worth mentioning, just because you start with one pattern doesn't mean you have to do that all the way through. You could combine different ideas we've looked at. So for instance, you could have a pattern that uses the arpeggio on the first bass note of each 3-note grouping, but then it reverts to the thumb index idea. You know, you see what I mean? 1, 2, 3, and then the cadence is normal. So again, roll that hand pattern out across the whole phrase. It sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You see what I mean? There's huge numbers of options open to you just based on what we've already done. A final quick thing that's worth saying is this. We focus mainly on embellishments with this hand, but most of these melody ideas, they're all based on the E major scale. E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, octave E. So there's nothing to stop you changing the bass lines if you so choose. If you pick any of the notes of that scale and land in the right places, it will still work. You know, so for instance, I won't talk you through this, I'm just going to demonstrate by just playing around. You could play the first cycle as normal. But here you could do something a bit more interesting with the scale. You could go, for instance, you see what I mean? And like I said, I'm not going to talk you through that. I'm just demonstrating. If you understand that's what the scale is, and you're landing on the chord in the right place, on beat 10, there's lots of options open to you. So there you have it, the basic Alegría Escobilla, and different ways you can embellish it. To conclude, I'm just going to demonstrate what happens when you start to bring this all together. Here we go. I leave that in your capable hands. Well, my friends, I'm afraid that's all we have time for today. But if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the bell icon to receive notifications. There'll be more videos coming soon. If you want to study with me on a more one-to-one basis, you can book Skype and Zoom lessons via my website. A link is in the description below. Until we next see each other, you stay safe, and as always, thank you for watching.